think opening bid is easy, so I'm just gonna hit record and then go live. It's Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we're talking about Can't Stop and All My Diamonds. Now we haven't done a show in a minute. We had a vacation. We actually went away.
Well, it's we thought, hey, we're not doing anything but working, but actually, stuff keeps happening, right? And run out of show ideas also. And holidays and whatever. No one's paying us to do this, so
but indirectly via YouTube Premium and advertisers, people are paying us dozens of dollars to do this.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm not seeing any of that. So.
It's covering the Libsyn and a couple other things. But yeah, that was one of the longer hiatus than we've taken in a while. So everything that happened, whatever we don't talk about today, is going to be forgotten. We will never think of it again. We'll be struggling to come up with what to say at the start of the next Geek Nights.
The next show, we'll only have 2 days of material to look back at.
We're like a queue that flushes itself on access. Every time if we pull stuff out of the stack, the rest of the stack gets dropped.
Yeah, pretty much. It's only what has happened since the last time we spoke, right? But I mean, it's really how radio, right? If we were some morning radio show, right? You would only talk about, even if they took a hiatus and came back, it's like you'd only talk about what happened yesterday.
Unless it was something that was so big, but the line for what is so big is so high for Geek Nights, or for me and Scott in particular, at least.
Right. I mean, you would only talk about the past if like your topic was, if you had a main bit, it's like, anyway.
Yep. But so where we vacationed was actually moderately interesting because it was just on Airbnb. Like, it's not like, don't think that I pulled strings or anything, but on Airbnb, I was looking for a place that would fit 20-ish people.
And here's the thing is if you want to get an Airbnb that has a lot of people, right? And it doesn't get you kicked out for partying and cramming in too many people.
Yep.
You really only have 2 choices. Choice number 1 is like big mansion for a lot of money, right? Oh, there's 3 choices actually. The second choice is some sort of compound, campground, cult place, right? Where there's many small houses and like maybe a main meeting house.
I should see if we could rent an old cult compound some year.
Oh, there's plenty of those you can get like in the Catskills and all kinds of anyway. And the third option, which is the option we tend to go for, is basically building that used to be a brothel, even though no one says so. The way you can tell that the building used to be a brothel is that the bottom floor, right, will have large social rooms, big dining rooms, living rooms, a big kitchen that can serve many people, right? That's kind of place. And upstairs, right, we'll have many small bedrooms, right? The place we stayed at technically was like civic, right?
So it was. I actually know the full history of this house. This was not a brothel, though it has the similar format to a brothel.
I think it was a brothel, and they just refused to say so.
Well, it was.
Right, they have scrubbed their history to. Right.
I'll go a little more.
Why would a civic house have all those bedrooms upstairs? That makes no sense.
So
why would it have any bedrooms?
While I am confident that brothel-like things have occurred at many points in this house's history, this type of beach house was very common in America on the Jersey Shore, and basically rich people, like the guy who built this house.
Yes, brothels were common.
This was his house. He was the first mayor. Basically, he founded Wildwood, and this was his house, but he structured it as a civic club because he would invite prominent politicians and famous people to, hey, got to be in New Jersey? Come stay in my house. So, like, Woodrow Wilson wasn't president when he was staying there. He was like the governor of New Jersey.
Yes, he was visiting a brothel, just like everyone did in those
This was not a brothel. That stage. Well, I see the pattern because
a stage now. A stage? What else?
It does have a stage, but this house was used in the 30s and 40s for a lot of weddings, and also civic clubs would basically have their meetings there with the blessing of whoever owned the place at the time. There's a whole history to it.
Yes.
But no, finding the house that was definitely a brothel.
Small bedrooms upstairs.
I mean, they weren't that small. This was more like, think of it more like
there was a hallway off the main hallway that had like 3 tiny bedrooms in it.
Yeah, well, that's for like the valets of the rich people who were staying here. This is brothel adjacent. This was rich people are coming to Wildwood and staying there as part of political shenanigans. This is graft. Yeah.
Stages and shenanigans. All right.
Anyway, but the
point is, we've gotten at least 2, if not more, Airbnbs of this nature.
I mean, the waterfall house was the best one because the waterfall house was like.
Waterfall house was the same exact. It wasn't the same exact layout, but the same principle of at the bottom there were large spaces, and upstairs many small bedrooms.
Well, I think the key was that. Upstairs, the many small bedrooms were all connected to a room that had a large stage on it, and the bedrooms were about the size of a small twin bed each.
Yep.
And the owners were like, yeah, this was a fucking brothel. You want to know the history? But to give you all a vision of this, that house, that waterfall house, not the one we stayed in Wildwood, the waterfall house, it looked a lot like the house in Phantasmagoria. Like,
if you want to stay in an Airbnb with many friends, right? Find a house, an old one that used to be a brothel, and everything about it will be great except for the fact that it's old, but you're not staying there that long, so who really cares?
Yep. It was a pretty cool place. I would stay there again. And of course, we were worried like, oh, it's a semi-famous historic house, and the owners are really like, oh, you guys are old, right? And I literally described like, look, I work in capital markets. We're a bunch of aging sedate nerds. We're not going to throw a party. And afterward, they sent me a message that was like, holy shit, you guys took care of this house. Like, wow.
Well, you didn't mess up our house.
Yep.
It's just like it was when we left it. Great.
They also, while they were like, no parties, no like strict everything, we found when we got there several packages of glow-in-the-dark ping pong balls, yet no ping pong table, which is some environmental storytelling as to what whoever stayed there last used this house for. So in the news, I'm a big fan of Overwatch, the game, but you might have noticed I don't talk a lot about Overwatch League. Like, I'll watch games.
Well, we talked about it a bit back in the day.
Yeah, but in terms of like, I guess I am not a. I was
like 1-2 years ago.
I have never been a fan of an esports team or person to the degree that I've been a fan of even like an amateur sports team, like real physical hitting people type sports at any point in my life.
None of them have really done anything to like engender loyalty, history.
Like, all I'm there for,
care about them.
Like, Overwatch League, literally didn't care who won. I just watched the matches because I wanted to see the top tier of play. Like, that is all I wanted out of a professional league in a game like Overwatch.
It was a New York team, and I was like,
Excelsior.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, we should check out that New York team. But then there was really nothing New York about them except their name. Right?
Nope, because almost all the players were from overseas anyway, and all the games were happening on the West Coast for reasons, and then COVID happened. And long story short, Overwatch League, for a previous economic era, when I say previous, I mean like just recently, because things have shifted radically just in the last couple of years. They were doing everything right, like many esports leagues were, in terms of you mirror what professional sports are doing, you act like it's bigger than it is till it becomes bigger, you get the money from the sponsors, like they were structuring it like sports, and they were trying to emulate the things that make sports fandom successful. And in that previous economic climate, I don't think that was a bad bet. The problem is that entire ecosystem in both real sports and esports relies on exactly one source of dollars that matters. And that source of dollars is sponsorships and advertising. And
you can also get a TV deal, but no one's going to give you the TV deal unless they can get the ads. Right?
Yep. All the ways you can think of to monetize this other than direct selling merch, which being in the t-shirt business is not the way you want to be. Being in the t-shirt fulfillment business is the way you want to be.
The other thing you can do with sports is sell tickets to attendance, but esports can never really,
Yeah, there is
like once a year for like their LoL Dota championships, and I don't know if that's still a thing.
And even then, like, as much as like Overwatch is my favorite multiplayer competitive game right now by a wide margin, but even there, There is zero reason to see that in person. I want to sit in a room with a bunch of people watching people sit on a stage where otherwise I could be sitting at home with 5 camera angles.
Right. It's like you need, regular sports. It's like, yes, you can watch it with ads, and then we actually have a superior way to experience spectation, right?
Yep.
That cannot be rivaled and cannot be pirated or duplicated unless you pay money, and that is coming to see it with your own eyeballs, right? And even if it's not better, it's at least different in a meaningful way that you might be willing to pay money
like
for.
American football, it's kind of objectively worse unless you're looking for specific things out of the experience or you are very rich, but or your team's terrible.
Hockey is just better.
Yep.
Tennis is usually just better. Not that it's bad on TV, right? Baseball is not so much better, but different and has charms.
That is a very diplomatic way to put that, but yeah, I agree.
It's like there are reasons to attend live sporting events and pay money for it, and it's not a waste of money. But attending esports in person might actually just be worse than watching at home on your computer.
Yep. So Overwatch League was doing everything right, but the advertisers dried up. Advertising in sports is down from the data I was able to pull up preparing to talk about this. Advertising in esports has...
Except gambling ads, of course.
Yeah, gambling ads. But that's it. It's gambling ads, car ads, beverage ads, pretty much nothing else. Actually, the bifurcation in the advertising market is kind of nuts. Total aside, gold ads, like invest in gold, literally only exist in Fox News and no other networks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And the more you think about it, the more sense it makes. So, but meanwhile, Google just announced Google search making more money than ever. Their ads are doing better than everyone else. So I think, and now it's speculation. Here's what I think.
Even though search results are getting worse.
Yeah, search results are getting worse. I think it's just, my suspicion is very specific, but this is just speculation. My bet is across the board, everyone is reducing advertising for a lot of reasons. But I think they're sending a higher percentage of their remaining advertising to the small number of advertising venues that they believe have the highest return, which I suspect...
Like, are places that buy ads decreasing their ad budget, or are they redirecting it?
Yep, or both. And I do think it's both, because I saw a lot of numbers arguing that the overall advertising spend in America is dropping and consolidating.
Right, because see, this is the thing, is like when you have a big company, it's like they just sort of decide, like at the beginning of the year, or maybe if they're really micromanaging it, like we are going to spend X dollars on buying ads, the end.
Yep.
Right? And it's like then the people who in the marketing department, their job is to spend all of those dollars, right? So it's like if they're left with like $1 million at the end, they're just like, oh, what should we do? Let's just they're just constantly finding ways to spend that money, right? It's like they're not, they are to some extent trying to measure the effectiveness and get the most bang for their buck, but in a lot of cases, not really. They're just, just trying to spend it all.
But esports were kind of a bubble for advertising in that they're, unlike other places you could put an ad, that is an untested place. Like, I personally don't think ads are very effective in a lot of venues, but esports don't even have the veneer of a history of generating a return on investment. And the kinds of people who are into esports and AGDQ type things, like video gaming in any capacity in a serious or elevated context, are also the kinds of people who block ads or don't want to see ads.
Oh, maybe. But I mean, I think it's just simple is that like, hey, the esport had a bunch of viewers, right?
Yep.
The viewership was a big enough number that they could go to a sponsor and say, hey, do you want to sponsor this? No one else is sponsoring.
And the viewership is huge. The viewership remains high despite the drop in advertising.
Right. So someone says, all right, no one's ever advertised on this before, right? We don't know if it's going to work or not, but we see the eyeball numbers are big. So yeah, I'll give you some money. I'll put my logo up there big time. I'll sponsor you big time, and we'll see what happens. And then they give it some time, right? And they see what happens, and then they decide, this wasn't worth it. I'm not gonna not renew this deal. Bye-bye. Right?
Yep.
Then they're in trouble because it's like, well, they didn't renew the deal, and now getting someone else but to like buy, I get they can't get that person to buy. To getting anyone else to buy is now much more difficult, right?
Yep.
If the first person had renewed, everyone else would say, "Oh, that must be a good deal. I got to get in on that too." Right, and it's a very snowball one direction or the other. It snowballs uphill or
now.
downhill.
So I did see another number. This was from a news source that like I don't have secondary like this. I'm reporting a direct number I saw from a disclosure, but I haven't read like reporting around it yet. But it stated very specifically that viewership of Twitch and YouTube game streams are both significantly down in 2023 compared to 2022, 2021, 2020. And it seems to correlate specifically to when people started going out and doing things again after COVID winds down slowly. And the streaming world, like people are streaming less now than they did before COVID in the context of video games, at least. Now, that is hard because this is like a financial disclosure type number. It's hard to like Twitch and YouTube. Like you could probably make up numbers based on their data to say any story you want about trends in viewership. But I feel like we might see that the streaming world has shrunk a little bit as people go outside again. So there's even worse stuff going on in esports because independent of that, Overwatch League was already in trouble for a bunch of other reasons. Remember a while back, like we basically said Blizzard games can't be in China anymore because of that drama with NetEase. So the Chinese Overwatch teams were kind of in a pickle because how are they going to practice if the game is not available legally in their country? So one of the Chinese teams just said, fuck it, and quit the league. Like they just gave up.
They can't. Why waste your time, right? It's like you got life to live. You got to go, eat, get food.
Yep.
You got to go play. If you're gonna play games, you got to at least pick a different game, right? You got to start practicing every day. You don't play a different game, you're falling behind.
Yep. And what are you gonna do? Like go to a camp like in the U.S. or Europe or like Singapore to train for your video game?
Right. For your whole, to invest your life like that. It's like you can't. There has to be some sort of, light at the end of the tunnel to be worth that investment. Some people do that for something like an Olympic gold medal, which, ends up not actually getting you much money or any money.
But you still like, I feel like a lot of people think it's worth it to be able to
clearly
have had that medal.
Right.
But
other people, I'll dedicate my entire life to playing baseball because if I do it right, I'll make tens of millions of dollars, right?
And you'll get Mitchie Flower Power, who dedicates his entire life to Super Mario 3.
Right. It's like, but if dedicating your life to Overwatch has no way of paying out, why the fuck, would you do beyond the level to which you simply enjoy playing?
I love Overwatch, and I think it is an expertly designed game, but at the same time, I spend like several hours a week playing it tops, and it's my top competitive game. So not super high on the priority list of trying to get better than like silver or gold. But anyway, Overwatch League is in trouble for unrelated reasons. It hasn't been going well for all these different things that I'll link to some articles you can read. But basically, all the teams have to vote on whether or not they're going to continue the league under an amended operating agreement. And basically, to summarize, the teams can either vote to continue to be in Overwatch League, or they can decide individually to accept a $6 million termination payment from Blizzard and then shut down.
Pretty good.
So that $6 million payable to each one of these teams is, as best I can tell, sort of a consolation prize to make up for the fact that they all paid significantly higher fees to be a team in the first place, and now the league is fucked.
I thought it was all the teams were. I didn't realize the teams had individual ownership.
There's the whole franchise agreement, and there's a lot going on. They really doubled down on structuring this like quote real sports. Which
that's the thing is that but real sports, there are two different ways to do real sports. One is where the league owns all the teams, and the other way is where all the teams are individually owned. And usually when you're just starting out, you'll have the league own all the teams until they have lots and lots of value, right? And it's like, and then...
Like at one point will a rich person be like, I would like to have an esports team. Here's $400 million. Give me one.
Right. Or imagine if, just think of a sport, a league you already know, baseball, right?
Yep.
It's like, okay, the Major League Baseball owns every single, this never worked that way in history.
Yeah.
The Major League Baseball owned all the teams. And then it's like the Yankees become the fucking Yankees. And it's like, hey, someone comes along and is like, I can buy the Yankees. It's like, now you can. It's like, oh shit. And then people start bidding for it, right? And then the league ends up just selling off all the teams, and that's sort of like the IPO, right? Of the league.
Because you're hoping in the secondary market, potential expansions down the road, league fees, like all the there's a lot of ways to do it. The
league itself would not be, that's the other thing is that, sports leagues are usually non-profits, right? It's the teams that are supposed to be profitable, right?
Yep.
And the league is just sort of this governing body. But when you have an esport, there's like and you have the company that makes the game running the esport. The esport is a marketing arm that's supposed to make money for the company by, selling copies of the game. But also they're hoping to make money off the esport part directly. Yep. And it's like, if you're the governing body, it's like, no, you're just sort of running a league and the teams are supposed to make money. And if you're a video game company with a profit motive, you can't really operate something like that. But,
so reporting
always has to be a specific game, which is going to be a game made by a for-profit company.
Reporting from the second half of last year claims that Activision Blizzard was owed $400 million in unpaid franchise fees for Overwatch and Call of Duty leagues, and they had postponed all those payments due to COVID, but now the leagues aren't doing well, and like more nonsense is about to happen.
Yeah, I think, esports in general, I don't know how well, I'm not paying attention to all the esports, but what it feels like to me, based on, the esports that I do see, is that no individual. There are some League of Legends is still big.
Yep.
Fortnite's are still big, right? There's still big ones out.
But they're not
right?
big like the leagues wanted them to appear. They're not big like sports.
They're big in some places to some audiences. The fighting games are big, right? But I think what's happened is that people are competing at lots and lots of games, right? In small, highly organized communities. If you go on Twitch, you can see competitions and tournaments and all kinds of things.
Dude, forget it. Look at the randomizer communities. Those are fully formed esports leagues. They're just tiny.
Right, they're just tiny. And I think there's an extremely long tail of very healthy esports that are not, in any one of them individually is not enough to make money for real companies.
It could make plenty of money for humans and life, but not enough money for capital to give a shit.
Right. So it's like competing at video games is maybe healthier than it's ever been, but making a single video game that is a, thing unto itself with a professional competitive thing that provides careers for athletes and a whole bunch of other people as a whole industry. I don't know. We would need a new game to come around for that to happen. And could that game have enough staying power, right? For it to
no game has done it, and at this point, well, also the final news here.
Games have done it, your Counter Strikes and your LOLs, but it's like, and they have the numbers on the viewers are big, but
Yep. So Blizzard also, they seem to have just given up. They laid off like their entire esports division.
Well, I don't know how many esports people they have left, because it's like years ago they laid off esports people, then they did it again.
Well, they just laid off 50 more, and
it's like, how many are left? You look at the Blizzard website, it's like they still have esports events scheduled. How many people are left there?
An insider who wasn't to be named in one of these articles said, yeah, with the few people they have left, I don't know how they continue to operate any of this. It's going to be a skeleton crew to shut down.
Right. I think that's what you're going to see within a year or some change. Right? They're just going to
I think esports are going to have to come back in a very different form. And I still think the communities are strong because gaming is very popular and very important to humans, but monetizing games and gaming is not compatible with capitalism in a way that works today. I think
if I was a game maker, right, and I wanted there to be a competitive scene to, as a marketing thing, right? It's the competitive scene only exists because I only really make money by selling the game, right? So I want more players.
And we clearly see selling the league is not going to make money.
Right. And there are players who will play it for competitive reasons and I can get money from them. So what I would do is I would just build in features in the game, to make competitive play good. Right.
Yep.
And then I would create, I'd spend some of my marketing budget on prizes. And then I would see the players would naturally organize, right, their Discord servers. And I would pick the well-organized players. And I'd be like, oh, that tournament there, his prizes, official prizes for that tournament. Right?
This lets you test the market. If one of those exponential back off, if one of those little leagues makes it big, you approach them, you acquire them, you use that to try the other business model.
You don't need to go that far. I think they just they don't cost you anything to run, but you just provide prizes to them as legitimacy, and that brings in players and brings
So another way to go,
make all your money by selling lots of copies of that game.
I think there's two other broad ways to go that are crazy ideas, because the next way would be. People have attempted this, but never really at a good scale. But the cross games, Olympic style esport run by a nonprofit that decides what games are part of the event, like the Olympics. No one's really tried that effectively. I also don't know if it would work.
GDQ. We already have GDQ. It exists.
Yeah.
It's
except you'd make it more, structured, kind of like the Olympics. The way that I think could make the most
I don't know if there's enough people who have the culture of caring about who wins, to.
Well, the thing is, that's where I think you raise a good point. That's where the Olympics, a big chunk of the audience are people who have nationalist or personal reasons to care who wins. But when I watch the Olympics, there's a subset of people. I just want to see these exhibitions of skill. I want to see the humans.
Well, that's what GDQ does.
Exactly.
So there you go. The end. They don't need the competition part, and they don't have it. And
the competition could, in a way, be the fiction. Yeah. The third way to go, the way that I think would be the coolest, and I would love to see someone try it. I don't have enough money to do it, or I would try it. You got to combine in equal parts the Harlem Globetrotters, the WWE, and esports. The
WWE part is definitely the part that's missing, right?
I want to see the GDQ person exhibiting the extreme skill in the same way that a WWE wrestler is exhibiting extreme skill.
A few, but not most.
But I want to see that coupled with the narrative. It's not really a fair competition. You are setting up the experience to be amazing. You're setting up the esport to have the crazy thing happen. And then you mix in the Harlem Globetrotters, someone pulls off the glitch in the middle of the match. And you make it semi-scripted entertainment that involves exhibitions of skill. But I do not have the money or the connections to push that, nor do I have the energy to try to push that. Somebody's going to do it someday, and I'd say there's a 15 or 20% chance they make a lot of money, and a 75 to 80% chance they lose everything.
I think it's just hard to do that in a video game.
Well, that's where you got to cross things a little bit, and you got to be clever. I don't know, maybe it's like chess boxing. Biathlon, you're playing airsoft and Overwatch, or Airsoft and Counter-Strike. You got to do both.
You need to devise some special game that someone's controlling behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Right? Or just pre-record the game and two people sit there with controllers.
Yep. However you do it, you script it.
Two actors pretend to push buttons while the video plays.
You script it to the level that the WWE is scripted. You go all out on the entertainment is the goal, competition is the fiction.
Right, what I'm saying is that there is some improv element to the professional wrestling that you can't have with a video game, because the video game itself is rigid.
Unless those people with such high skill. Imagine if two of the best AGDQ runners who both know one game really well were doing a fake competition where they are working with each other to make interesting things happen on purpose.
It's yes, they might, but it's if it's live, then it's even those people are not perfect because it's so difficult, right? So
yeah. Well, it might not have to be perfect. I mean, the kayfabe survives despite wrestling being hyper-telegraphed.
You're just a human being, and you can fudge it. The ref can be count slowly, or, you can wait before you slam somebody, right?
Yep.
It's in Street Fighter, it's the timer is ticking, the health meter is there.
Yep.
Right?
But maybe, open-ended Fortnite in the event where, the thing's coming in, you have an agreement. Look, this person's going to win. Don't kill them.
That's, yeah, sure, but it's things can happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, things can, like in WWE, sometimes the wrong person wins because whatever was scripted failed and they have to do a backup plan and they like have to do some shenanigans last minute. I just watched
That's pretty rare.
It is pretty rare, but I watched a documentary recently about this old ladder match where like someone fell off the ladder and they changed who won like mid-match to make it work.
Anyway,
got any news or should we get into
I mean, we talked too long, but yeah, esports is doing poorly.
Things of the day. So I work with a lot of German engineers. I spent a lot of time in Germany in my current job, and I've always enjoyed Germany, but this YouTube channel, Kelvin and Habs, is great because it's basically, the conceit is you've got an American and a German, and they explain the less well-known cultural or societal concepts in their respective cultures to each other under the auspices of their roommates. Like, hey, I moved to Germany. I'm an American. Well, what do I need to know? Or I'm German. I'm living in America. What the fuck is AC and why do you have it? Like, it's funny, but it's kind of talking about the things you wouldn't know unless you moved to Germany, let's say, and then were confused by the culture and had to realize that if you rent an apartment, the kitchen doesn't come with any appliances. Like, that's just not a thing in Germany. Like, bring your own appliances. And if that sounds like a pain in the...
I'd like to bring my own appliances.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah. But how the fuck would you have even thought about that until you're, like, talking to an agent over there? Like, hopefully you're like, hey, I'm dumb American. Is there anything I'm missing? But this one is a good one because it's about the Schrebergartens. There's a lot of unspoken cultural norms in Germany that I transgress upon accidentally constantly, and my teams are very good at like politely pointing out like, oh yeah, that's not how it works here. But the Schrebergartens are a really fun concept. That's my thing of the day. It's a 60-second video. This will explain to you what a Schrebergarten is and how that's different from a regular garten, and why you are not allowed to fucking talk in Schrebergartens. You sit there and quietly eat cake.
Schreber just mean quiet?
Basically, they're private gardens. So imagine in New York, you got Central Park, Bryant Park, all these parks. They're public. People can kind of do...
There are private ones here.
Oh, yeah. But in the public parks, people can kind of do whatever they want. Like, people tend to be loud. Yeah.
But yeah.
People are loud. There are not a lot of social conventions in these parks. But, like... You can't play ball games in Bryant Park, but you can play ball games in certain parts of Central Park, for example. Yeah. The private gardens, these Schrebergardens, they're like the private gardens in New York, except the people who share them, they tend to be used in a very particular way. And this video does a very good job of explaining this particular German concept.
All right.
So what do you got?
So here's this website that I guess who knows how old this website is, and I just never came across it before.
It looks old, but that is definitely on purpose.
Yeah, it's a chiptune.app. It looks like a DOS command line GUI with the blue background from some old IBM PS1 or something, but it's all JavaScript, and you just click on search or browse, and they have over 200,000 chiptunes to listen to from all the old video games just right there. So if there's some like video game OST from, I don't know, some old Famicom or the Sharp X68000 MDX or this folder called Jazz MIDI.
Oh, wow. It's more than just like what I was thinking about in chiptunes. I got to poke around in this more because under that MIDI directory,
whatever Faubrausch V2 is, I could Google and find out, but so can you.
This looks a lot like the stuff that was on Vikram's back in the day.
There's 200,000 plus audio files to listen to of chiptune enjoyment just in a little JavaScript player in your web browser for free with no ads, all right? So
I feel like I got to make a cocktail and spend an evening poking around in here.
Yeah, find some buried treasures in there. And then there's a favorites tab where you can save your favorites to go back to them quickly.
If the Vikram stuff is in here, this means I don't have to try to get the data off of the one hard drive I ever had that died. And it looks like it is based on my memory. Anyway, in the meta moment, the Geek Nights book club book. I got to reopen the Geek Nights website because I closed the tab. It is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. We should be doing this show on Thursday. It is a very short book. If you have not read it by tonight and you're listening to Geek Nights, I think you could read this book in
You got time.
2 to 3 hours tops. Like
You'll make it in time for the Thursday 2 nights from now.
It's a quick read, and I got some things to say about it. And I'll leave it at that. But yeah, then I guess we're going to have to pick the next book club book. It's going to be on me to do a choice again. Do I bring back Uberto Eco? And I got to figure out what I'm going to make the choices.
Yeah, you could. You could just keep bringing back the same one, and only loser or winner walks, loser keeps trying again, like the Omegathon or whatever.
Trying to figure out what my personal rules are going to be for that. Like if I bring a book more than N times and it doesn't get picked, I feel like that is a sign from the heavens.
I just decided that I'm going to always come with some. I'm not just going to have 2 things that are random, right? I got to make it interesting. I'll just have some sort of logic.
Oh, same thing. I mean, I picked 2 books that were famous that neither of us had read that were published in the same year last time.
All right. As long as I have some sort of logic to keep it interesting, that's fine. Who cares, right? Because if I try to make something more rigid, it'll just be difficult.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be fun. The whole point is that it's fun. Otherwise, we will be at PAX West doing a panel, games you can't play. We will pretty definitely be at PAX Unplugged doing some amount of content. PAX Unplugged is still my favorite PAX, so stay tuned for that. We'll definitely be there. I do have a hotel room for MagFest, and I guess I can share this.
I don't know about MagFest. We'll see.
I'm going 100%. Absolutely going to MagFest. But I talked to the people who run Mages. It was running in a limited form during the COVID times. It is coming back in full glory, and we are invited to return to its full and former glory.
Are the people running it different people than before?
There seem to be a lot of different people involved in the email list that I am now on again, but it seems a little more streamlined. I don't know. I think the people we enjoyed doing panels with all appear to still be around. I can say that.
Right, well, we'll see.
So I will be at MagFest. If Scott decides not to go, it's just going to be for him on like 6 or 7 panels. But I think I'm going to, even though I have a room in the Wyndham, if I can get a Gaylord room, I think I just want to stay in the Gaylord. If I'm going back to a MagFest, I'm spending a lot of time hanging out with randos in the con and less time. They're not available. Remember the lottery? You've never done the lottery, have you? You can't book.
Because
Yeah, so guess what? You can't book Gaylord rooms. The way Gaylord rooms work is if you buy a MagFest badge, then you can get into the Gaylord room lottery.
Oh, but how can I'm not buying a badge, though. I'm getting a free one.
Yes, so if you're getting a free badge, then the only way to get a Gaylord room is shenanigans or talking to mages and joining me, rejoining mages in some capacity.
Well, can I like, try to play the lottery and then just not go if I lose the lottery?
I think you'd have to buy a badge to do that. I'm going to find out. But regardless, I did book a Wyndham suite just for me and Emily that has a bedroom in it. So theoretically, we could put more people in it.
We'll see.
We'll see. I miss MagFest. I miss MagFest a lot.
Look at the calendar,
It's not over New Year's. It's like way later than usual.
Yeah, they made it later this year. Yeah.
Which kind of makes it better for me, timing-wise. I kind of want to do New Year's more like old times. I don't really want to do New Year's MagFest. But anyway, that was the meta moment. We've talked for a long time. We are going to review not one, but 2 games tonight because they are games that are really good, but with some caveats, and there's not that much to say about them.
Right.
But it is a sign that we will be doing a lot more board game reviews in the future because while we were on vacation, I think we played like 7 board games that all are worthy of a review, at least.
Well, we played 7 games we haven't played before. It doesn't matter how worthy they are, right?
Yep.
Anyway, there was a person named Sid Sackson, right, who is the person who designed the game Acquire, which you may have heard of. He was a famous, legendary figure in the gaming world. I think you mentioned him on Geek Nights when his massive, lifelong game collection was broken up and sold.
18,000 individual games in this collection.
Yeah, and all of his papers collected were put into the Strong Museum, right? So if you have your papers put in a museum, you know that you are a significant figure in whatever field your field is. His field was games. This was a guy, Sid Sackson was like his old dude who was just all in on games his whole life, right? He would write books about games and, And
I want to point out, he was born in 1920. His most famous game is probably Acquire. That was published in 1964. So he was older than us when he published his first like super notable game, like the one that if you didn't know Acquire was from the 60s and we just got a modern copy of it and brought it to the table, you would probably assume it was made more recently than 1964. It's a solid game.
Yeah. I mean, it's not perfect, but
yeah.
This was and I think, his biggest works actually were his books, right? If you buy one of the Sid Sackson books, it's just page after page. And like every couple pages has another game. And they're all games. Most of them are just using like standard pieces. Like, here's another game you can play with a deck of cards. Here's a game you can play with a bunch of dice. It's just like you buy one book and you get like 100 fucking games in there, right? It's like, this guy really, he compiled, all the gaming knowledge there was, and that's why it's in a museum.
Yep.
But anyway, we played 2 of his games that we had not played previously, even though the first of which is like a game that like everyone's played. And that game is Can't Stop.
Which I had actually, while I was aware of it, I had never played it until.
I knew of it for many, many years. I just hadn't played it actually for reals. But I knew how to play it. And basically Can't Stop is almost the purest form of push your luck game there is. That's all there is to it.
It's versus push your luck.
Yeah. And the thing about Can't Stop that separates it, I think, from the other push your luck games is that in other push your luck games, there's like this steady sort of reduction of the odds, right? When you can feel yourself getting squeezed and you're like, okay, I got like 100% chance to still be in. I got a 90% chance to still be in. I got a 50% chance to still be in. All right, I got a less than 50. Now I'm out, right? It's you can feel it, the squeeze coming on and back out. And the only time you don't back out when the squeeze comes on is when you're way behind and you sort of have to go for the onside kick. And now that same thing still holds true and Can't Stop. But in Can't Stop, the odds never really squeeze you so tightly.
Oh, it was notable. Both me and Scott, despite being, I would say, very good at statistical heuristics in games like this, we pushed our luck to failure way more often than anyone would expect either of us to.
Right.
But I felt good about those decisions, which means this game has got something going on.
Right. It's like it never squeezes you so tightly numbers wise that you feel like you're going to lose. You have to stop now. Right.
Yep.
And the way it works is you roll what? 46, right?
Yep. Small number of dice. Yeah. 46.
46. And you can combine them any which way into 2 sets of 2 dice each. Right. So if you're rolling 4d6, it's like, what are the odds that like a 7 is going to be in there somewhere among 2 dice? Really, it feels. I haven't done the math. That feels like you can't miss, right?
Yep. You know where else it feels like that? Craps tables.
Of course. It's like, but you know what? What are the odds of 4 1s coming up? It could happen. What are the odds of 4 6s coming up? It can happen, right? It's like nothing is guaranteed.
But to make it feel even better, it's not 2 independent 2d6s. It's 4d6 because the next step of the game is you look at the 4 numbers you rolled and you arrange them into an arbitrary combination of 2 2d6.
Yeah, it's any which way, right? So you're like, you feel like even when you need you just need like to hit one of the numbers, right? That are possible between 2 and 12. It's like, I just need to hit one of these numbers between 2 and 12. It's just like, and you're like 4d6 and you never feel like there's no way I'm going to get this.
And I think that's
my chances are good. I'm going for it. You can't stop, right? You feel like you're going to make it. You keep rolling and then you miss and then you're fucked.
And I feel like that is the brilliance of this game. We didn't even get into the specific mechanics, but the brilliance is you are more likely to be fine than get fucked most of the time. But what that causes is this let it ride feeling where I got an 80% chance. That's fine. 80% chance. That's fine. And if you've taken it,
chance is fine as long as as soon as you try 8 times.
That's all.
You're going to miss one of those times.
Yep.
Right? It's like, it's going to, Even if you only try 5 times, it's like, okay, one of them is going to miss.
Yep.
You already got 4 in a row. You really want to try the 5th time on the 80% chance?
So mechanically, like the specifics, the way this works is you've got this big pattern. If you're on the live stream, I got a board up you can look at. But basically,
it's just a racetrack.
Yep, just a racetrack, but it's a square, but you're approaching it diagonally. So you're trying to get all your pips all the way to the end. So if I roll 2 7s, I can move a pip up 2 on the 7 track. The 7 track's in the center, corner to corner. It's the longest path. But so I got to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Path, right?
So I got to roll 13 7s without stopping. Or stopping at an appropriate point, but you can't stop. You got to keep going. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Or at the very edges, if I just roll 2 3 times, I get to the end of the 2 track.
Right,
and
now it's like 2 is pretty hard. You need to get 2 1s, but it's like 2 1s on 4d6. It's like,
yeah, it's not a like calculate the strict odds in your head situation. You look at that, you know the
2d6, you'd be like, hell no, I ain't gonna. What are the odds of me rolling snake eyes? Too low. But on 4d6, it's like, I'll eventually make it 3 times, right?
Yeah, feels good to like have to advance that if it comes up because that's a nice safety. But so even if you got something on 7. You got to keep rolling 7. Once you've got all your pips moving on the board.
Right, you have 3 pips. So you eventually assign your pips to 3 different numbers on the board.
Yep.
And once they're all out there, right, if they're not out there yet, you can sort of assign them to any number that you've rolled and put together from 2d6 out of your 4. But once all 3 of your pips are out there, let's say I got it on 7, 8, and 10, right?
Yep.
I roll my 4d6. Among the 4 dice, I have to put together at least 1 7 or 1 8 or 1 10 and advance one of my pips at least 1 space. If I can't, with any combination of the dice, make a 7, an 8, or a 10, and I can't move any of my pips, I busted. And all my pips got to go back to where they started before I started my turn.
But that's the key. If you stop... but you don't want to stop.
You have the guts to stop. Then it's like a save point. They can't. They're wherever they are. They're set and they can't be pushed any further back. And you can make some progress.
And I got to tell you, locking in a good run is really, really, really powerful. But even me and Scott, you look at it. You've rolled 11 times in a row and things are going great, and you got something on 7, so you know you're safe. You just look at it.
Can I not get a 7? I'll just keep going until I win the whole 7 track. Yeah, good job.
I think I busted back to 0 like 4 times in a row, and I consider myself a smart person.
Yeah, so I think that this is a model that some other push your luck games should try. Is don't squeeze. Keep all the rest of your game is just fine. There's a lot of good push your luck games out there. Like we like to play No Thanks, right? Where you put the tokens on the card, right?
But that game's all about the squeeze. You give up the squeeze.
Has so many tokens on it. You're like, of course I'm just gonna take the card, right?
Yep.
But imagine if No Thanks like never squeezed hard enough, and it's like. You just always like didn't want to take the card, even when there was a mountain of, and you just kept pushing it. I don't know. It would be more exciting.
And that's it. The game's so simple. Like poking around on Board Game Geek, people just make this game by drawing it or printing it on a piece of paper.
All you need is 4d6 and a piece of paper.
Yep.
And some palms.
And some number of objects to put on this piece of paper.
You really, I mean, like I said, but. What's the rating on Board Game Geek? I think.
Oh, let's go back to Can't Stop.
Low. People don't like it.
Who wouldn't like this game? This game, you talk about fun economy. This game.
Board Game Geek gives Can't Stop from 1980 a 6.9. I give it like a 9.
I was gonna say 9 as well because this game, unless you're playing with an intolerable Spider's Georg type person. This game takes maybe 15 minutes to play, and it feels real good the entire time.
Yep.
Like, this game is so fun for how simple it is. It takes so little time to teach this game.
Yep.
So, play this game. There's no reason not to play this game. It would be an A+ Omegathon game at PAX Unplugged. Like, S tier.
Oh, yeah. So the next game was one that's from one of his books that I went and I found an excerpt from on the Internet Archive and then transcribed and then prepared all the pieces for it. All it needed was a deck of cards and a stack of chips.
Yep.
And its game is called All My Diamonds, and it's a very modern art adjacent selling, auctioning, bidding game, right?
Yep.
Which of course we love, right? And the way it works is you get a deck of cards and you throw the 10s out. You get the 10s out of there. So you got 48 cards. And if you got those 48 cards with no 10s, there are basically 8 sets of 12, right?
Yep. You got a matrix of the suits and
exactly. So there's the diamonds, the hearts, the clubs, and the spades. Those are 12 cards each because the 10s are out. And then there's the lows, the aces, 2s, and 3s. The mids, the 4s, 5s, and 6s. The highs, the 7s, 8s, and 9s. And then the faces, the jack, queen, kings, right? And so therefore, you've got 8 sets of 12. And your goal of the game is to, in your hand, have 10 cards that are all in the same set of 12. So 10 clubs, 10 diamonds, 10 lows, 10 faces, right? And as soon as you get 10 of one of the sets, you put it out there, you're like, boom, and you collect the pot, right, of chips that have everyone anteed. It is a big ante. And so then you continue playing. Everyone continues playing. And there's a second pot, and the second pot is comprised of taxes. Because the way you acquire cards is that on your turn, you must look at your hand and pick one of the 8 sets and take all the cards that you have in that set, at least one card also. You can't just pick a set you don't have.
Yep.
And sell it to everyone else, right? So you might say, all my diamonds, right? And take all of the diamonds out of your hand and sell them as a lot at auction. Or you might say, all my faces, and you take all the face cards out of your whole hand and sell them at auction. And you get, right, all the money when you sell the cards, except 1 card's worth of money is paid in taxes. So if you sell 5 cards, you keep 80% of the money, right? If you sell 2 cards, you keep half the money. If you sell 10 cards, you keep 90% of the money, right? So, and the rest of the money you don't keep goes to the second pot that will be for the winner of, the second winner, basically. And it could be the same person who wins both times, right? Now, the thing with this game is that all that matters is who has the most money wins. So you could actually not win either pot and just be so good at selling or buying low and selling high that you end up making more money by being a card seller, right, than by being a winner. And that's the thing.
So
that's the whole game.
This game is worth playing to explore the concept, but we devolved into a giggling fit in our game because this game, when confronted by what I would say is a group of stone cold pros who have very good understandings of bidding and valuation, the bidding breaks down into a disaster and the game falls apart. And it was really funny to watch the game just like collapse around us.
Right. So Sid Sackson says, All My Diamonds is a game I conceived as a change of pace from poker. Although there is no similarity in the play, it satisfies the same urge for speculation. It's basically an auction where players must decide whether they can earn more by buying or by selling, right? But yeah, when we played it, it's like you could sort of imagine worlds where like other lines of play might have been possible. There's obviously some luck element. You could just be dealt some amazing hand or something, right? But the initial pot is just so much bigger than anyone was willing to bid for anything. And it's like, you think, well, bid more, but it's like...
But if you bid more, like, your winnings are so capped by the nature of the game that it won't work out for you.
Yeah,
so,
it's like, if I'm going to win, if we got 4 players, right, and everyone puts in, 15 ante, so that's 60, right? It's like, all right, so I have to buy with my money a winning hand, right, for less than 60. I'm not willing to pay out a total of more than 60 to get a winning hand. If I buy something and I don't either A, win, or B, sell those cards I bought for a higher value, I just lost, right, money. So it's like every move has to be profitable. So it's really tight, and there's not a lot of winning lines, right? And it's sort of like, are you going to try to be a seller or are you going to try to be a winner? If you try to be a winner, you're going to spend very little, which means the people who are trying to be sellers can't make anything off of you.
Yeah.
It was very, it's like basically whoever got that first pot ended up, it was so much money because we were all so cheap. But if you weren't cheap, if you just tried to spend it all, it's like, well, there you go. You didn't make any profit.
Yep, you're in the modern art situation of I spent $40 to win $32. Great.
Yeah.
Then the only strategy at that point is you would take a loss to prevent someone else from getting a pot, if it would be profitable for them. But that breaks down too, and the game just kind of fell apart. And it was just, I still think
there was a lot to learn from the concepts going on here. I just think it needs some tweaking in like the numbers department and also in the auction department. But I feel like if you do those tweaks, will you just end up at modern art anyway?
You might, because modern art kind of did this like as best you can do without adding more complexity, which isn't necessarily a good thing in a game like that.
Yeah. So this is a case where, this game does predate modern art, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure 1969 versus modern art board game.
By Kinesia?
Yep. Modern art. Let's see. 1992.
Yeah. So, it's like playing the proto version of a game, is great, right? As opposed to usually, these days we're playing like remakes and polished, redone versions of games, right? Like we're playing the Small World after the Vinci we've already been playing the Vinci. This is the opposite. It's like, imagine if we only ever played Small World. I mean, I guess that's a bad example because you like Vinci better, but still, it's like, if you had only ever played, Resident Evil remakes, and then one day you go back and try to play the original. It's like you can see what was going on there. There's a lot to learn. There's value in that, but also it's not as good.
Yep.
It's just not as good.
I do think it is absolutely worth playing if you are interested in game design at all, just because the experience of playing it and then seeing how the bidding breaks down, or you might have a friend who's bad at bidding games and it doesn't break down, and that'll be funny for different reasons. But
I think you could also tweak the numbers, and if you got a bunch of people to play it multiple times, that you might be able to develop, a meta, right? That could work.
I think so. It's possible. I think the problem we ran into is that the game as written, I feel like the meta we encountered in our first playthrough is an extremely strong attractor for people who are skeptical of the value of the second pot.
Yes.
And I do not imagine a world where the first pot is sold for so much. Anyway.
I suppose there's a world in which you sort of try to shoot the moon, in which you pay a lot to get the first pot on like a break even, and then get your money back in the second pot also. Because you've got all these cards left over that you're buying for the first pot, and you've got so many cards left over, you can get the second pot also to get your cash back.
Yeah.
But that would be tough.